So let's launch in. For those who haven't met me before, my name is Kelby. I am one of the Business Station advisors. We today are going through, look at that, pretty business lifecycle. Now, this is more about your mindset, about what you're going to go through, whether you've just started up or you've been in business for a while. This is going to be all about what's going to happen, how you deal with it, finding some mentors, all this sort of really cool stuff, and then getting out the door to the next big idea when you've done what you set out to do. So feel free to pop up some questions in the Q&A. We'll deal with those at the end. This will take about 40 minutes, something like that. You know, it's not a hugely detailed, wordy sort of thing. It's more a case of let's think about where you're at and what you're going to go through, and then we'll roll it out from there. There we go. So the business life cycle. Now, when you're starting off, okay, this is when you've got all your really cool ideas, and it doesn't matter. These stages apply no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing something like a tech startup or you're simply buying into a traditional business and you're taking over from the existing operators, or indeed you're buying out your current business. You're just taking the old guys out and you're taking over management buyout, which is always exciting. I love dealing with those because you always get a fresh approach. This really applies every time, okay? The first thing you're going to think, I'll guarantee you this, every time is you're looking at it going, well, what's this going to work? And it doesn't matter, okay, who works now. You're buying out somebody or you're actually buying into the business that you work at. Just because it works now, is it really going to work with me in charge? Like, how's it going to happen? And you go through all that. How are we going to, even if there's systems in place, how's it going to tick over when I take over? And how do I get started? Like, how do I get into this sort of thing? And managing it and all my IP, how do I protect that? Like, how do I stop my competitors ripping me off? All that is perfectly normal. Okay, so when you're going through all of this turmoil, and it can be quite traumatic, and I've got personal experience, I can guarantee you. I've started about 4 businesses in the last 10 years. I exited successfully from most of them. One of them we wound up because it was very much, and we'll get to that right at the end, okay? But that was the plan. At the start, we planned to wind this one up because it was very much all around me. There was nothing to hand over to anybody else. So it's a case of make as much money as we could and then shut the doors. But I went through every one of those stages when I'm looking at it going, okay, even with a franchise that we ran, it's like, okay, well, the franchise works. We know it works, but is it going to work with me in charge? Like, the way I do business, can we modify? How's all that going to come together? Like, what's going to go on here? Right? Perfectly normal. Don't sweat it, okay? Perfectly normal. In fact, if that's where you're at, you're on track, okay? Don't sweat it, all right? Now, this is the time when you lay the foundation for success. It really is critical that you get to the point where you either kick off or you're going to change direction and do so, and either modify your ideas or just go, yep, no, we're going to do something entirely different because what we're talking about here isn't going to work. All right, so that's fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. Okay, now, here's where you start laying out your 5 big questions that you'll use to map out the next X number of months, years of your life, of the business, okay? What are you doing? Okay, what's your big idea? What's the problem you're solving? And that's fundamental to any businesses. What's the problem you're solving? Identify that because that's the core. And the why is, why are you solving that problem? Okay, you get those two together, and that is the foundation for everything you do. I mean that literally, everything. Your HR, your culture, your sales approach, your pricing, everything is built around that foundation of what problem are you solving and why are you solving it. Okay, so think about those. Who? The principles of the structure. Who's going to be involved? What sort of legal structure are you going to use? Get that mapped out. Your strengths, your weaknesses, what do you bring to the table? What do you need to bring in from outside? Lay it all out. That goes on top of your next. That's your next layer, okay? And then the actual mechanics is how are you actually going to solve the problem, okay? Yes, there's an issue in society, okay? There's a business issue to solve. Yep, you're the right person to do it for these reasons, and this is the structure you're going to use to solve it. How are you going to actually do it? And then set the timelines out from start to finish. And when I say finish, I mean exit, as in you're selling out, you're winding up, IPO, and you're taken over by VC, whatever, exit, okay? Because You plan the finish at the start. You don't plan the finish when you get right to the end, because that is at best awkward and usually can create some drama. Okay, if you get it set up right at the start, it's a much smoother process. Okay, so important to realise that you don't need the answers. Okay, you don't have to figure it all out right at the start. There's no need. No, it's just what you're going to do is have the questions there in front of you, because if you're not asking the questions, you're really setting yourself up for drama down the track. Okay, and again, that's not anything it's just the way it is. Like, if you don't ask the questions, you're going to strike a problem in the future, which you could have quite easily circumvented by simply asking the right question at the start and getting the right structure, getting the right process in place. Okay, so you've got all the questions laid out, and here's where you start laying the foundations. This is the next stage. Okay, 2 out of 4. Now, research, structure, process. Simple. Okay, figure out what you're going to do. Resort, how you're going to research your idea, you're going to resource it, how you're going to fund it, what sort of actual equipment you need. Do you need premises? Do you need supply lines? Do you need what sort of customer relations you're going to have? What sort of user experience you want to develop? All that sort of stuff. So when you build this structure, which will drive your idea through, this is when we dive right into the big 5: what, why, how, and when, and who counts. And you start mapping out your answers. Right? Start laying those foundations down. Okay. Think about when it comes to what, and this is the one you've got to start with what. Like, what's the problem? Okay, really start thinking about defining exactly what the issue is. Is it a case of you've got a tech startup and you want to solve that last mile delivery problem? Okay, if you get a big problem, a big one. That's a nice big one. Everybody wants to solve that. Not even Amazon have solved that, and they've got some resources. Right. Well, define the idea. I'll define that problem as best you can. Like, really nail it down. So what exactly is the issue? Because last mile delivery, it's a nice phrase, but what exactly does that mean? Spell it out, because as you start spelling out the problem, you can help you develop the solution. All right, and think about why you're the person to do that, because that will be the motivation that keeps you going when things go a little bit sideways, which they will. I can guarantee you that. Okay. 2. Okay, start mapping out. Okay. There we go. Makes it nice and easy. Start mapping out who the principals are. And this is important, very, very important, that you are honest about your skill sets. Okay, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if you've got knowledge yet. I don't care. It's irrelevant. Okay, it doesn't matter if you haven't got all the skills. And if there's 5 of you in the team, like at the moment I work in a team of 2. Okay, and what we do here with Business Station. And we complement each other quite nicely. I've got some operational skills. He's got some real sales skills, and we kind of interlock that, and it works really well. But there's a heap of stuff that we don't do. So from our teamwork point of view, we outsource it. Like, we're not the brightest guys in the room, but we're not stupid. Okay. And so it comes to this one: skill sets and knowledge gaps. Be honest about where you're at from a skills point of view. Like, really, you need to just map it out. What does everybody bring to the table? Whether it's money, skills, contacts, whatever. Lay it out. And then on the other side of it, lay out what you need. And this comes back to the problem you're solving, and indeed how you're going to do it. So, you're not going to solve one question at a time. You sort of mesh them all in together. So here's what you've got. Here's what you need, and there'll be gaps. I'll guarantee there's going to be gaps. That's fine. Not a problem. Outsource it. Bring somebody in from outside on contract. Maybe you bring them in as a co-founder. That's fine. Okay. Bring them in to plug the gap. Okay. But just be honest about it, because if you're not honest about where the gaps are in your business, okay, and I'll point out now, bookkeeping, I can do it. Kind of. I have an accounting background, sort of. Not my skill. It is so not my skill set. Okay. So I outsource that. Not interested. Okay. Tax returns. Yeah, got the skill set. Don't want to do it. Okay. Got my time's better utilised elsewhere, and to be honest, my knowledge base is not up to date enough. So outsource it. Okay. Fixing cars. I don't do it. Outsource it. So be honest here. And the fixing cars might sound a bit glib, but we run a small fleet of cars as part of the business. So I don't do the repairs on their cars. Hell no. Okay. We outsource that stuff because our skills are elsewhere in the business. All right. It's a pretty simple analogy, but you get where I'm coming from. Okay. Be brutally honest about what you can't do and get somebody else to do it for you. And if that is going to cost you money, I'll guarantee you that. That's fine. Build that into your cash flow planning. Okay. When it comes down to your production, the how you're going to do this, Finance is part of that. Great. Look at your cash flows, build in the cost of bringing in skills. It is what it is. All right. Legal structure. I'll just put the hobby horse back in the stable for a second. Don't only talk to your accountant about the structure you need for the business. Okay. Talk to a solicitor and indeed an insurance broker, commercial insurance broker, about the risks in business, how you mitigate those risks, how you deal with sale of the business down the track in terms of tax implications of that and the transfer of assets. Have a serious talk. I know that's going to cost you a few dollars, is what it is. Okay, if you're getting into business, nothing is free. Okay, pay for the advice so you get the structure right. I get very frustrated and angry when I come across people who are sole traders in incredibly risky businesses. House builder. Okay, I'm not talking about a little bloke coming in building a few cabinets. The actual guy who holds the building license trading as a sole trader. Seriously, mate. It's not like there's any risk in building houses for people because there's no warranty claims, there's no chance of injury in a workplace, there's no chance of. And you know why? Because when he started, he was a chippy, and his accountant said, "Oh, look, mate, you just do a little job, just be a sole trader, you'll be fine." And just moved from there, and nobody changed the structure on the way through. Let's talk about where you're going. Set up the structure right, particularly, please, particularly if there's more than one person in the business. Husband and wife, not such a drama, but if you're doing partnerships like me and old mate around the corner there, we have a shareholder agreement. Okay, and that specifies a million things. Ours is fairly detailed as far as shareholder agreements go, but it's got stuff in there just in case clauses, I call them, like drag through clauses. All these sort of things, okay, opt-in clauses, tag-alongs, it's all there just in case something happens down the track. So there is no argument, there's no ambiguity. We know who's filling the zoo and what happens in certain circumstances. Who has to do what and who has the option to do what. Two very, very different things. So legal structure, it is critical. Get it right at the start. Wow, so much easier down the track. And just while I'm on my favourite hobby horse here, I'll give you one more example. I work in agribusiness funding, like business banking for farms, with Suncorp for a while. And obviously got a lot of family partnerships in that sort of industry. One of my good clients was a multiple family partnership. One family kind of inherited, others have come in as they've got a bit older and they've got land in this name and that name and those names, and a couple of things. One, absolutely no partnership agreement anywhere to be found. Two, assets, not just land but also stock and equipment held in various names, one name, two names, three names, but nothing was in the wife's names, not one thing. So we're sitting down one day having a chat, and I set up family meeting, business meeting, and so we're there, all of us, and I said, look, what happens if, I'm just looking at the situation we've got here, guys, and what happens if he dies, falls under a tractor and dies? Where does that leave his wife and the kids and everybody else in terms of asset ownership and transfer and wills and all that sort of really cool stuff? And the table went really quiet. So, okay, forget about him for a second. What if he dies? And that was one guy, had his name on just about everything, but knows his wife's name. And what happens if he dies? And the table went even quieter, which I didn't think was possible. So, see you later. I'm gone. I will come back in a week. I want 5 days to go talk to your accountant and your solicitor. I want to see a shareholder agreement. I want this thing sorted because there's way too much risk here for you guys. Don't worry about me as the bank. Like, we're fine. We're covered. We're not stressing. I'm stressing about where you guys are at. Took them 2 weeks, so it was a bit of a problem. But they came back with a shareholder agreement, basically a partnership agreement, which laid out and sorted out all those asset ownership issues. So what happens if somebody wants to retire and sell out? What do you do then? And it's just, oh my goodness, what a mess. Do it right at the start, and you avoid all that drama. There'll be other dramas, but you'll miss out on that one, and that's a big one to miss out on. Okay, so please, you bring other people into the business, shareholder agreement or a variation thereof. Okay, mentors and advisors. Now, ASBAS is really cool for this because you get some gun advisors. Not telling me, but some of the guys in digital, I tell you, they are red hot. And you get them for free. On this webinar is free. You can have them one-on-one for first one's free, then it's like $60 plus G an hour. Workshops, $25. That's ridiculous. Cheap as chips. Okay, but we're not the only people in the game. There are a lot of advisors out there. Don't be afraid to tap into somebody else's skill set. Yes, you're probably going to have to pay for it. Walk on the business, but have a crack. Don't The worst thing that can happen is you spend the money, you get some advice, and you decide not to use it. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Mentors. Cannot overemphasize how important mentors are. Okay, I've got a couple with the stuff that I do, and I'm constantly getting not necessarily new ideas, but feedback and an independent, cold, third-party assessment of what we're doing and where we're going and how that might all sort of pan out. And we don't always agree, and sometimes they're not always right. But getting that third-party view, that cold, one step removed, no emotional involvement view of what you're doing, what you're planning to do, is gold. Okay, and I'll give you a great example of why that's so important, even for people who've been in business for a while. A guy called Nick Bell. Check him out on LinkedIn if you've got a minute. One of the now Fin Reviews Rich List started his first business when he was in uni. I think sold that for 35 million. It's worth 250 million or something. Big in the digital space, huge. Okay, Removify, that's one of his. Now, he was getting annual growth of about 40% in his businesses up until about 5 or 6 years ago. And then he brought his first mentor on board because, as he said, he really had no idea what he was doing. Despite the fact the guy was a multi-millionaire, was killing it in business, he was kind of flying by the seat of his pants. 5 years ago, brought a mentor in, and the growth in his businesses went from 40% a year to about 100% a year. And that's a guy who's been there doing that, getting what anybody would consider to be massive success, brought in some outside advice, that third-party cold view, and suddenly the improvements in how he did business produced enormous growth. And I'm of the opinion, for what it's worth, that if a gun like Nick Bell has mentors and can get value out of it, then surely little old me and little old you is worthwhile. Just sitting out. And they're not that hard to find, okay? Chamber of Commerce. Okay, if you're not a member of a Chamber of Commerce or BNI or something along those lines, get involved. Okay, talk to other businesses. Look for people who are not necessarily in your industry but have serious success, and just tap into where their mindset's at and ask them for some feedback on what you do. You'll be surprised who will offer up advice if you're game enough to ask. Okay, it's kind of counterintuitive, but there's a lot of business people who don't mind giving advice for free if you're game enough to come up and ask and start a conversation and maybe offer something back in return. The other thing is, and again, Nick Bell has a little startup called Liznick, which is him and Lisa Teo, who's another digital gun, and they actually have a panel of mentors that you can tap into. So if you want to explore that option, check out Nick Bell on LinkedIn, on Liznick Mentor Group. Again, there are worse places to start. The how: production, finance, marketing, admin, culture, people. All right. That whole how, if we just go back up the screen for a bit, will be founded and revolve around the what and the why. Okay. The motivation for what you do is key to everything you do. It's how you measure it's how you measure your staff's output. It's how you do everything. Okay. Customer feedback. I'll talk about more on this tomorrow in the customer retention and advocates webinar. Okay, but when you're laying out how you're going to do what you do, the production, how you're going to fund it, how you're going to market your products, the admin that sits behind it, make sure it doesn't fall over, the culture that makes sure it goes smoothly and you achieve what you want to achieve, all of that revolves around why you're doing what you do, okay, and when. And this is actually the most critical part, because this is where you hold yourself to account. All right? And I am a huge fan of accountability. All right? You lay out the timelines, when you're going to start, what should happen when, and when you're planning on exiting. Okay, that whole timeline, you lay it out. Now, none of us are stupid. All right, we all know that the best laid timelines are at best assumption. Okay? You're not going to hit every deadline. No one ever does. That's fine. But I guarantee you, you'll never miss a deadline you don't set. Okay, because you don't set a deadline, you're just meandering along, and you'll do what you want to do. There's a stack of systems you can put in place to track your task management. Absolute ton of them. Get one. There's a stack that are free. Okay, at the small end, and the bigger ones you spend a few dollars. Nothing really for nothing in business. Lay it out. Okay, measure it and hold yourself to account. Okay, if you miss a deadline, then think about why. Was the deadline too ambitious? Did you actually underestimate what needed to be done? Did you get distracted That's a big one. Okay, it's funny how when you're, especially at the start with businesses, you're building from scratch, how you've got so many demands on your time and your attention that you can lose track of the timeline, which is why you document your deadlines and you focus and you prioritize everything. But you've got to do that. Okay? Very, very important. Without that, the rest of it will simply meander. You won't ever really come to a successful conclusion. Now, here's where the fun starts. Take a long, hard look at your market and your competitors. Okay, now, you've all been part of it. Let's come back one step. Right, when you're setting out the problem, okay, the what are you doing and why you're doing it, okay, you'll have an idea of what the market's like because you found a gap and there's an issue that's not being solved. All right, so, and when you're, sorry, keep on going, when you're looking at how you're going to do it, you will be looking at what your competitors are doing and either copying or improving or doing something entirely different in relation to what they're doing. So we come back here to tapping into your network, and like I said, this is where you look for advice, okay? You're taking a hard look at how you're going to do it and how you're going to compete in the market, how you're going to drag those customers in and keep them. It's critical if you want to keep them. Nothing like repeat business. Okay, tap in your network. See what they say, okay? Because what you're going to find at some stage is that the question's going to come back at you. Okay, and I get this sometimes from my guys, especially one of my best mentors is actually a very good friend of mine. And you would think that some of the advice would come from a friend. Hell no. Okay, he has some pretty solid words at times about things we're doing and the direction we're taking. But it goes both ways because there are times when he's doing things and he'll just come back and say, hey, listen, need your feedback on this. Can you help me here? And there's been more than one occasion where we've squared each other up and said, listen, mate, what are you doing? Seriously, why are you doing that? You know, that's not going to end in tears. Go this way instead of that way. We've done that to each other at times. So don't be afraid. This guy's a high net worth individual, punching along in business, doing really well. It goes both ways. So don't be afraid to tap into your network and get some cold feedback on what you're doing. Now, this is where the magic happens. Okay, this is the third stage because pedal hits the metal. Okay, this is where you're actually going to go in and the hammer down and have a red hot go. It's real. No, there are no shortcuts. Like, I don't care what anybody tells you. There are no shortcuts. It will take time. It will take effort, and it will take the time it takes. All right. It's just, I see a million things on LinkedIn and on YouTube and Facebook. This hack and that hack and this shortcut, that shortcut. Yep, sure. Sometimes you can do things a little more efficiently. Sometimes there are processes which have been improved, but it will take time. And there's no easy route. Never is in business. And yeah, it's not a job. You actually haven't figured it out yet. I've seen this too often with people I've funded into businesses and I'm now consulting with them. And they've got this attitude of, a couple of us like, well, we're shutting the doors, can I go home now? It's like, no, there's so much else you need to do, okay? And just accept that and move on. All right, really, that's what I'm saying is that, like, right now, okay, we're gonna open the doors up, and that's exciting, okay? Exciting times. And I've done that with brand new businesses where we've actually gone in and unlocked the door, opened them up for new customers. It's like, man, that feeling is just awesome. I wish I could bottle it. Like, really, I do. It's just, all right, and off we go again. And this is where, it's like I say there, your resilience, your commitment, and your absolute sheer bloody willpower is going to be tested every day. Okay, and again, it's business. Now, the timeline, this production phase, the production phase will depend on your business. Okay, now I've never had a business where the timeline was measured in months. No, because everything that we've done has been a long-term play, medium to long-term play with a defined exit. We had a plan. We're for 7 or 8 years and then we sell out. This one will run for 3 years and then we'll wind it up because we would have made our money, the projects will be over and we're out the door. It takes what it takes. Okay, it's different for every business. You just need to commit to it and say, okay, this is the plan. There's an interesting point of view that just because you have a 10-year goal doesn't mean you can't do that in 6 months. Okay, that's possible in some businesses. In others, it's a 10-year goal because it will take 10 years to build. Fine, it takes 10 years. Okay, what's the plan? Off we go. Work the plan. That's where your willpower comes in. Okay, stick to the plan. Unless there's some fantastic reason to alter the plan here. Or there's been an innovation which shortens your timeline, or you had an exit offer ahead of time that is simply too good to refuse. Stick to the plan. Okay, don't be afraid to stick to your guns. Okay, and that's what I'm saying here. It's discipline in all aspects of your business. Okay, this is where systems and processes are truly, are truly your best friends. Okay, cash flow, sales people, they all need systems and processes to operate within, so you can monitor their performance. I spoke a lot about this yesterday on the cash flow webinar in terms of how you monitor your cash flow, where you can improve it for free and bring more cash into the business so you can do more stuff to make more cash to do more stuff, which is the whole point of what we're doing here. Don't guess on these three things. You don't have to guess. It's silly. Put in place systems and processes, and I'll talk a little bit about this later when we get to exits. This is critical. Okay, the whole point of being in business, generally, okay, with a rare exception, is to duplicate your efforts so that you are working on the business, not in the business. Okay, franchising is an example of that, but you look at any successful business, the people who are running it from an overview point of view. They're not on the tools, however that may be described, every day. Even in small service businesses, where you've got a local accountant, the suburban solicitor cliche, those little service-oriented businesses where they're actually doing the work every day, they've got staff helping them because they can't do everything. And to be honest, you don't want to do everything. You want to have systems and processes to duplicate your efforts so that things are done right every time. And if you tap in tomorrow, I urge you to jump in tomorrow for the customer retention, the advocacy one. This is a big part of that. Okay, get it right and then do it again, rinse and repeat. So if you've got a business where you think you're flying where you see your pants a little bit, that's cool. Document it. Okay, when it works, write it down. Literally, something, pen, paper, write it down. Because if it worked once and then you try it again and it works again, then you've got the beginning of a system process. So document it so that when you've got some staff and you can say, listen, this is what we do and it works, it gets these results. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to do this, do it this way. Okay, and duplicate that and duplicate that and duplicate that. There's a reason big corporates have all this documented, and the same reasons and the same principles apply at the small micro end of the business scale. Okay, nice and simple, nice and simple. And you need to think about improvements. Now, I know no one's actually asking any questions yet, but when do you think you need to start working on improvements to your business? Answer, day one, as soon as you open up. Okay, you want to look at issues, I look at it as opportunities. All right, you don't have problems in business, you have opportunities. Okay, you want strategies to build repeat business. Even if you're a one-off service business, okay, and again, your suburban solicitor is the classic example where so much of their business revolves around either estates or conveyancing. They tend to be one-off or limited repeat business. So they need constant referral, they need constant new clients coming in, because if somebody buys a house through them using them for the conveyancing, they might not see them again for another 5 years, they might not see them again ever. Okay. They're doing somebody's estate. Well, you tend to do somebody's estate once. You don't often do their estate twice. Okay, so you need systems and processes to build that referral business so you have that constant cash flow. Your staff turnover. Okay, now hopefully this is not something you need to work on in day one. Okay, but your staff turnover can be too high. Okay, that's an issue. Fix it. Okay, what's the underlying problem? Why are people constantly leaving? Or it can be too low, where you've got people who are staying that you really need to exit because they are not producing at the level that you needed to produce at. Okay, your production line is inefficient. And again, spoke about that yesterday in the cash flow. There are ways of building systems to monitor how efficient your production lines are. Okay, you need to do that. Right? Cash flow is constrained. Spoke about that yesterday. Right? It's an issue. There are opportunities. There's opportunity in that to develop. Opportunity there to develop a better way of doing business. Now, Competitors, and here's the big one, competitors are developing better products with better ways of getting the same product out. Watch what your competitors are doing. You can learn from them. You can shamelessly copy them sometimes. You can simply look at what they're doing and still better. Okay, easy as. All right, now, another 5 or 10 minutes, we can wrap up some questions, because now that we've done that, so we've laid the foundations, we know what we're doing, we know why we're doing it, we know how we're doing it, who's going to be doing it, and we're actually doing it, and we're improving on it. Okay, so you're marching down the timeline, and that exit that you planned right at the beginning, you know, when you said, hey, listen, this is where we get out, this is how we get out. Okay, we're there. Okay, it is, there we go. Time to exit, stage left. Alrighty, time to head for the beach if that's your thing. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're selling and retiring, or going off to start your next big idea, or simply selling to the staff and buying another business in a totally unrelated field. It doesn't matter. This has always, in my experience, been the most forgotten stage of planning. Okay, and you've got to do it at the start. Okay, this is where we sit down and say, okay, it's all done and dusted. So let's have a look at the three main ways of getting out. Okay, and after all that time you put into building the business and trying to juggle family life and business life and all that drama, okay, we get to exit 3 most common ways. One's trade sale. Okay, second way is the family handover or the buyout from within the business, and the third way is simply liquidate. All right, and I've actually done 2 of those 3, so I'll give you some personal experience on those. All right, trade sale. This is the most common. This is where you bring in a business broker and bring them in early. Okay, even if you're not going to sell for 2, 3, 5 years, say, listen, guys, this is our plan in 5 years' time. What do we need to do to present the business in the best light to buyers? Okay, that's what they do for a living, is they sell businesses, so they know what purchasers are looking for, and they know the mistakes. It's the big one. They know the mistakes that vendors make presenting their business for sale. Okay, I can guarantee you these are the things you're going to need. You need clarity around things like your customer base, your record keeping, your cash flow drivers, and your business systems. Okay, and that sounds like a really huge thing, but really it's just a good accounting system that produces solid, believable numbers that you can back up with data, and some ratios that come out of that, so you can give people some performance guidelines. They will probably work them out themselves, but hand them over anyway. Show them that you are on top of the business. It's well run, so when they walk in the door, it's a machine they can just keep ticking over. And business systems, and going back to what we were talking about before, systems, process. Okay, have it documented. It's not a case of, oh, let the staff just do what the staff do. It's a case of, no, we actually have books that say this is what you do. We have online training videos. We have everything documented in terms of our systems and our processes, so our people can go in and do their job without having to reinvent the wheel. And we also have a process for reinventing the wheel for when everybody has some really cool ideas to basically solve problems and take advantage of opportunities. Okay. And the last one there, this is something that I've seen happen on times. It's not common, but I have actually funded a few businesses where the vendor has said, hey, listen, guys, we have these product ideas for product lines that we simply haven't been able to execute for various reasons. Okay. Here is 3 things that we know we can produce. If you buy, so that when you're buying in, have a look at this. You may have better ways of doing it than we have available to us. You have more capital to put in the machinery. Okay, it's another sales channel you can take advantage of. But we're exiting, that's yours. Okay, have a think about that, because what you want to do is add value. Okay, make it an easy transaction. Now, the family handover or buyout is, okay, as I say there, it's just a variation on the trade sale. Okay, it's really a trade sale to your kids or your uncle or your brother or some of the staff. Okay, now this can be easy if you plan it right at the start, especially with family members. Okay, because then you're going to get the family members with the passion and the skill set, and you're going to have them in the business, so the handover is smooth. You've got an agreement from the start. The price is set generally. Okay, but I'll give you a tip. Like I say there, if you're going to go down this path, okay, make sure that when the timeline is set, that everybody sticks to the timeline. Okay, a deal is a deal. I've seen a few dramas, again, coming back to the agri days, where we've had generally, it was dad who just couldn't hand over. Okay, and that creates friction, it creates inefficiency, and it really devalues the whole process. Okay, and again, it's the same as with the trade sale. Clarity around everything. Even with people in the business, don't make assumptions that they know how things are run. Make it easy for them. All right, make it easy for them. You can walk away note farmers. Even if you're staying in the business for 6 months or 3 months in a handover period, systems, processes, documentation, make it easy, good record keeping, clarity, makes it nice and simple. That's what you want. You do not want to complicate this part of the process. And the last one, which I've also done, is liquidation. And by that I don't necessarily mean bring in a liquidator. Okay, that's an entirely different scenario. I don't know anybody who plans to bring in a liquidator. This is where the business is entirely around your skill set. It's very project orientated. Okay, I've had one of those where we set up and said, okay, here it is. It really is a 3-year project. At the end of it, we've maximised our money and we just wind it up and shut it down. Service businesses are a classic for that. Okay, it can also happen when you can't find a buyer. Okay, and you've got a business where the skill sets are kind of unique, or it's an aging industry, local. Family members, you've got to deal with sell the family members and then just walk away and do something else. Okay. Doesn't matter. Start planning as early as possible for this so you can maximise the cash you're taking out to move on to the next phase. Okay. Now, that's pretty much covered it. Okay. There are my contact details. If you have any questions, if you want to punch into some more ASBAS stuff, fire away. You can email me at any time. You can give me a call if necessary. You can plug in through the ASBAS system and book some time with me. That's all very straightforward and simple. Okay, apart from that, guys, it has been wonderful sharing with you. Please come back tomorrow. We'll talk about customer retention, about building advocates, okay, about those 70% of people who don't come back after the first sale, okay. Let's tap into those and bring some of them back because that's the cheapest source of cash flow you've got. Okay, so hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. That'd be wonderful. Really looking forward to it. And we'll chat then. Cheers.